When you have lived in Georgia your whole life, like I have, there are many things that you consider normal that are just part of everyday life here. And you don't really realize how different homes are from state to state until you talk to someone who lives in a different part of the country. Hi, I'm Sarah Maslowski, a local real estate agent here in the Northeast Metro Atlanta area, and I specialize in helping families from all over the world relocate right here to Georgia. So today we're going to dive into a few comments that we have gotten recently from out-of-state buyers on what makes Georgia houses so different than what they're used to, and things people likely haven't told you about buying a house here in Georgia. For starters, many people are perplexed by our basements. Some buyers have a very strong opinion about basements, whether they absolutely must have one or they will not buy a house with one at all. And I get it. Maybe in part of your country, wherever you live, a basement is a scary, dark, damp hole where no one wants to be. So one thing you should know is that in Georgia, all basements are what we call a daylight basement, like this one that I'm in right now, meaning that it has windows and you can walk out the door from the basement right into your backyard. They aren't just a dark hole in the ground with no windows. You're gonna find that many homes with basements here, people will sometimes just say that in their state that just about every home has one. That is not the case here in Georgia. You will find that many basements here are finished out as essentially a second living space with additional bedrooms, theater rooms, or even kitchenettes. These are very popular with families, especially as your kids get older and they need kind of like that teen hangout space. And of course, if you work from home, a finished basement offers the perfect additional living space or office space. Now, you will find that there are some basements that have been left unfinished, and a lot of people just use that as extra storage. So think about all your Christmas decorations and all that stuff you just don't know what to do with. Also storing your lawn equipment and lawnmower, that kind of thing. The great thing is that if you buy a house with an unfinished basement, a lot of times they are already plumbed for a bathroom. So it's easily additional square footage that you can add onto your house and an additional bathroom. And rather easily, you can finish out that. Tons of good contractors here in the area that I can connect you with to help you with that. Now, sometimes people are freaked out by these unfinished basements, but since they are daylight basements here with windows and outdoor access, they are a great addition to a home. One thing that you will see is that on average, basement homes are going to sell for at least around $25,000 more than a home without a basement. Now, the reason that we have a lot of basement is the next thing that people point out when they're here in Georgia is that, well, this part of Georgia is not flat. Definitely not at all like it is in South Georgia where it's flat as can be. Here in North Georgia, you're going to have some hills. We are at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. So you can take a look at this house, for example. From the front, it just looks like a normal ranch house. But if you look at the back of the house, you're gonna see that it's set on the lot so that it's on a slight hill. So the front half of the basement is dug into the hill and the back is open and you can walk straight out into the backyard. So Georgia has 5 regions, and the top 3 regions encompass the mountains, and then you have the Piedmont region, which is where we're located right here in the Northeast Metro Atlanta area. And then down at the bottom, you have the coastal plain region. So you're gonna find flat land down in that coastal plain region in South Georgia. And like I just mentioned, here at the top of the state, there's mountains. And here in the Piedmont region, since we're at the foothills of the mountain, and long story short, all that to say is, well, we have hills, and in order to have a basement, you need it to not be on a flat lot. So all of that is to say is that you won't always have a perfectly level lot, and people are surprised about steep driveways or backyards that are really only flat for a few feet, or you have a yard and then a hill. Here is an example of a hill in a backyard. You can see that they added stairs to it so that you can actually walk up and utilize the flat portion at the top of the hill. People will often ask why the builder didn't dig everything and flatten it all out, but oftentimes that is where those areas are non-disturbance areas, which means that the county will not let them disturb that land, so they have to dig around them and into them, which is how you end up with these slopes in your backyard. So if a basement is a must on your list and a must is a flat yard, well, you pretty much can't get those. However, there are some great options where you can find basement options where you have a relatively flat backyard, depending upon how the builder has graded that lot. Another funny comment we recently heard was when we had clients in town from Utah, and they were absolutely shocked that we use pine straw as landscaping. They got the biggest kick out of it and thought it was just hilarious that we would use it in this way. In fact, watch this clip that our buyer, Camille, hi Camille, took to send to her family back in Utah. They said it was so funny that we use something that they take up and just throw away in Utah. But there's a really good reason why we use it here in this way. So because Georgia is such a humid and moist state, and because we don't use a ton of mulch because it holds water, and homes here are built out of wood as opposed to cement, having anything that holds moisture up against your wood-framed house basically kind of gives termites an open invitation to come in and start eating your house. This is also because Georgia doesn't really have dirt. We have red clay, which is not super fun. That clay is also not super absorbent, so that's why using mulch isn't as great of an option for landscaping. Georgia red clay is also something that really takes people by surprise. We weren't kidding when we said it's red. If you were to walk outside and dig a hole, you're not going to be shoveling up dirt, you're going to be shoveling up clay. Speaking of those termite bugs, if you come to visit Georgia in the summer, you might notice really big yellow and black spiders hanging from big, intricate webs. These are called Joro spiders. The Joro spider was believed to have made its way into the US sometime in 2013 or 2014 in a container ship from Japan, China, or Korea. Who knows? But it was headed towards Atlanta. This is a non-native species that came over on this shipping container, and it's making its way up and down the East Coast. The good news is that they don't bite, so it's not really that big of a deal, but man, they build these huge webs that are everywhere during the summer. They're pesky, they're annoying, and they're also quite big. You can knock down their web, and the next day they have rebuilt Charlotte's Web. So welcome to Georgia. Something we hear often, especially from Floridians, is where are all the ranch houses? It's not like ranch houses don't exist in Georgia, but it's nothing like what you see in Florida, where you will see massive flat communities filled with thousands of ranch homes. It's cheaper for a builder to build up instead of out because of the cost of land and concrete that it takes to build a ranch house, which is why, especially in new construction, you're gonna find way more two-story homes than ranches. A ranch on a basement is a popular, sought-after floor plan, and it's been kind of like our unicorn in our area because there are not a lot of them, but they are very highly desired. For example, at the time of filming this video, there are 206 homes for sale in Alpharetta, and only 13 of those are ranch-style homes. In Flowery Branch, you're gonna find 102 homes for sale, and only 20 of those are ranches. And then if you look in Swanee, they have 120 homes on the market, and 3 are ranches. They're very highly sought after. They tend to sell for a tiny bit more money. So we have options for ranches, so don't let that scare you if that's something that you're looking for, but just know that there are not that many of them here in our area. So I think you get my point. It's not impossible to find one, but you might want to open up your search to a two-story home if you can, or another popular option here is to have the master on the main and maybe a few guest bedrooms upstairs. If you're only open to a ranch home, and let's just say that there's only 30 for sale in the area that you're looking for, by the time you weed out the ones that are kind of like out of your budget or aren't big enough, or you don't like the neighborhood, well, you're not gonna have that many options. So sometimes we have to look in nearby towns, but don't worry. There is not a client that I have not been able to find a ranch home for yet. Flooring in homes in Georgia is another random item that often catches people off guard. You will find that most homes typically have carpet in the bedrooms, and then you have hardwood floors or LVP flooring in the main living spaces. You aren't gonna find a whole lot of floors, or of like tile floors all throughout houses here. You definitely will find it in bathrooms and laundry rooms, but it's not like states in Florida or California where you have entire houses full of tile. These days, many people are upgrading their flooring to LVP flooring or luxury vinyl plank, which is a durable and more affordable option to hardwoods. You'll find that even in super high-end luxury homes that people are using LVP as opposed to real hardwoods because they're less likely to get scratched. And if you have a leak or something like that, they aren't going to stain the way that real hardwoods do, and they're much easier to fix if something goes wrong. I've mentioned this next one often, but people are still shocked when they find out that all homes in Georgia here have air conditioning. Thank the Lord. Many times when I'm talking with buyers about their must-haves in a house, they will say, well, I would love air conditioning. Don't worry, air conditioning isn't a want here in Georgia, it's a must and it's a need. In fact, you often cannot get a loan on a house in Georgia if the house doesn't have AC. Of course, there's always an exception to every rule, so you might find a tiny house or a house built in the early 1900s that doesn't have AC, but just know that every house you are looking at on a home search likely has air conditioning. In newer homes, you will see vents in the ceiling where the cool air is blown through, and in older homes or homes on a basement, you will see that those air vents will come up through the floor or the lower parts of the wall. Another big thing that a lot of people are unfamiliar with that can cause unnecessary concern is having a septic tank as opposed to public sewer. You're gonna find that about 50% of the homes in our area are on septic tanks, especially if you live on a lot that is over half of an acre. This is because it is really costly for the city to run sewer lines to these bigger lots, so they have septic tanks instead. We've noticed that many people who do not have previous experience owning a home with a septic tank think that this is going to have like massive maintenance fees and require a ton of work on their part. So the important thing about septic tanks that you need to know is that you have to have them pumped every 3 to 5 years, and that's going to cost you around $400 to $500. So you can keep your system in great working order and avoid any major costly repairs by having that pump out done every 3 to 5 years. People automatically assume that septic tanks come with a ton of additional expenses further down the line, and if you maintain it properly, that's not always the case. So if there is a house that you're really interested in and it's on a septic tank, do not be afraid. It's not going to impact or affect your everyday life whatsoever, and it does not come with major upkeep. The biggest thing to keep in mind is that if you plan on putting a pool in the backyard, you're going to want to pay attention to where the tank is located and the field lines are, because obviously you can't put a pool right where the tank is or where those field drainage lines are. Oftentimes though, they can be moved or relocated, or you'll find that they are on the side or front yard. I recently replaced my 60-year-old septic tank, if that gives you any reference for about how long they last, and we did it more so of preventative maintenance. But boy, speaking of red clay, one thing I wasn't quite prepared for is how much they have to tear up your backyard to put in the new tank and the new field lines. So I was left with a sea of red clay just in time for my new puppy to come home and needing to go out for constant potty breaks. Red clay all throughout my house, and I think the dog is permanently tinted red now. So what do you think? Is there anything that we have left off this list that you would add? Let me know in the comments. And of course, if you are considering a move to Georgia, I want to be your real estate agent. You can find my contact information below this video. Make sure you check out this video for more helpful tips on making the move to Georgia.